Janet Bostic-Williams. She is the author of Operation Gratitude, Kill Colonel Tom Parker. Welcome to the podcast, Janet.
Thank you.
This is quite a story. Quite a story. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, I love to write, and I love Elvis. And, writing is easy. Writing about Elvis is easy. It just was a matter of getting it all together. I have a co-author, and he came up with some of the information and the plans. And as you know, if you read the book, it's sort of based on change of habit. The song Change of Habit, setting your old ways and moving forward. And then the other thing that promoted it for us was there's so many out there over the top zealous Elvis fans that this kind of tells the story of one back in the 70s. And, it resonated with a lot of people because they see some of the, for lack of a better word, craziness out there.
Yeah. when it comes to Elvis, yeah. We should mention that Selwynn Milborrow.
Selwynn Milborrow.
Okay. Yeah. So he is a
Brilliant.
co-author.
Yeah.
Yeah. Co-author. So, yeah, and it wouldn't be possible to write a book like this unless you are a serious, legitimate fan of Elvis. So tell us about your history as a fan, your experiences seeing him perform live, which I'm very jealous of, and your visits to Graceland. All this you talk about in the introduction of the book.
Well, I became a fan as a little girl. I was 5 years old, saw him at the movies with my brother, and didn't know who he was, but got my attention. I mean, Elvis had a way of doing that, whether you were 5, 25, 85, he just did. And I remember coming out of the movie theater and thinking, I like that guy. What's his name? And my brother told me. And ever since then, I just, I liked him. And then I started learning more about his music and had a chance to see him in 1970 at the Astrodome when he was did a concert there at the rodeo.
What's that experience like seeing Elvis? 1970, he was still on his game.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just little. I mean, I was like 9 years old, 10 years old. But I remember being there and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in the same building as Elvis, because I had just seen him in the movies. And he rode around. I don't know if you've seen the footage. He rode around in a red Bronco around the perimeter. The acoustics were terrible. We were so far away up in the rafters, but still, it was exciting. It was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, my mom and dad saw Frank Sinatra here in Connecticut, and they were kind of in the nosebleeds, but they were there. You could say you were there.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us about the two main characters, Liz and Trey. Trey isn't so much a super fan, but his sisters are. Liz, no doubt a fan. And there was an interesting way in which she organized her Elvis album collection too. I thought that was funny.
She was very meticulous about it. This was back in 74, 75. Elvis was her entire world, and she lived to, look for information on him and see where he was going, what he was doing, and organized all of her albums by order when she got them, and played them religiously, and felt like that Elvis was speaking to her through his dialogue in his movies, through his music, through his songs. And that was her whole world. And as she progressed, she saw that he was in the hospital, that he had been ill, so forth. And being so enamored of him, she felt like it was her duty to protect him, to save him. And hence the title, Operation Gratitude, because he was going to be so grateful when she saved him from harm. And then she decides that, it's the colonel that's causing all this harm.
And Trey,
I
said, his sisters are fans. He's not so much a fan, but
he sees the opportunity there to pretend to be a fan.
Because he knows all the girls like Elvis, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how the two end up meeting, right?
Right.
Liz and Trey. Yeah. So they talk about that. They meet at a Like a fan convention type of thing.
like a fan club meeting. There's a local fan club is being started, and she goes to the meeting. He goes, and that's where actually they meet before that by pen pal. And there used to be in the 70s. I don't think I was part of it, but I know friends that were Elvis pen pals, and they would write back and forth. Fans back then, they knew more about Elvis, where he was and what he was doing way before we had the internet, through one another.
Yeah.
And so that's how she and Trey initially met. And then they met up at this fan club meeting, not knowing that who they were. They met up.
Yeah. I remember those days of Kiss fan clubs. Uh,
Mm.
my older brother was in a fan club for the band The Outfield, which is an interesting one. They had the song Your Love was a big famous song. But yeah, in those days that was it. Like maybe inside of the album you could sign up for the fan club and you would get things in the mail. This is all pre-internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, we called it the back then they called it the Elvis Underground Railroad. So
okay. Elvis Underground Railroad. Yeah. And then there's the moment when Liz realizes that she's got to do something to save Elvis. In today's world, that would be searching the internet,
mhm.
search for anything you could find, and there you see an article. For Liz, she collects every article that's she could possibly collect, and it's one particular article that gets her pretty fired up, and she can't let go. Can you talk about what's in that article regarding Colonel Parker that gets to her and the issue she has with the Colonel?
Well, she sees that the colonel is um, for lack of a better word, is harming him instead of helping him. She sees that she's duty bound to to follow through and do everything she can. She knows that the colonel is making huge amounts of money gambling. And she finds out that the colonel is holding him back and working him too hard. And a lot of Elvis fans, if you look around at different, even today, they have to find a scapegoat. Nothing is ever Elvis's fault. It's the Memphis Mafia. It's the women in his life. It's the colonel. And she sees the colonel as the biggest threat.
And it's interesting because yes, it's a novel, it's fiction, but
It is
what's written
fiction.
about the Colonel is pretty accurate, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what was he really like for those who may not be? I mean, Elvis is so famous, I'm sure most people do know. And then the movie came out. Tom Hanks played Colonel Parker so well. He does as he does with every role. But how what was Colonel Parker like? How much did he contribute, in your opinion, to Elvis's struggles towards the
Well,
end?
you
He was
have to realize,
important to his beginning, to his launch, though, right? It's kind
right,
of a
right.
it's like a dichotomy. Like without him, I don't know if he'd be as famous as he was. But then without him, I don't know if he'd have the downfall, right?
You have to remember, if you look at everything that the colonel did, the colonel was a genius. He was a marketing genius, but he was a promoter, not a manager, a promoter. And he didn't have a creative bone in his body. He could manage Elvis through promoting him, through merchandise, through filling the seats, getting people there. But as far as care for what his star was doing, where he was going, he didn't seem to have a lot of forethought and vision in that. So it's a double-edged sword. I mean, the colonel was definitely instrumental in getting him national exposure and making him a household name. But then at some point, the colonel held him back because Elvis was locked into the movies. He was locked into staying within the U.S. as far as tours, and
Which we later found
you
out
know,
why, right? It was
which was
Colonel
not
Parker
why,
could not leave the country.
right?
Yeah.
And especially after Aloha in '73, it would have been wise to have different management. But Elvis was very loyal. How much was loyalty and how much was just going with the flow, I don't know. But there should have been some change. Could have been some monumental changes at that time. But that's on Elvis too, because he was happy with status quo, I suppose.
How accurate was the movie, in your opinion? I'm assuming you saw it.
I saw the movie a couple of times. I like the music in the movie. Uh, I like the fact that several people came to me in times after and said, listen, we saw the movie. Did this happen? Did this happen? You know, so there was a lot of inaccuracies. They painted some people in a bad light that didn't need to be, but it wasn't a documentary either. So it was accurate, I think, in theme, but it was flawed in a lot of um, in a lot of ways, time wise,
And that
um,
happens a lot. Yeah,
and
they did
depicted.
that with the Queen film where timeline is off and everything. Did
But
you
very,
like did you like Austin Butler as Elvis? How did you feel about his performance?
um, at first, I wasn't so sure that he was going to be good, but I really think he captured the essence. I really liked it a lot, and I think it was hard for him to get away from that afterwards because he was so wrapped up in it. But yeah, I thought he did a great job. Very, very good job.
He's a good actor, one of the best up and coming
Uh,
actors. What about Tom Hanks? Do you feel he played Colonel Parker accurately?
I think so. I mean, Colonel Parker, for all the good that he did do, um, he was not altruistic. He was after his own way. Evidently he did have a gambling problem. He needed to keep the money flowing. And so he was a little bit manipulative and a little bit looking out for number one, which isn't a surprise. And I think Hanks definitely portrayed that.
Janet Bostic-Williams is the author of Operation Gratitude, Kill Colonel Tom Parker. There's a point where in the book, Liz is going to see Elvis in concert, and that's thanks to Trey. They're going to see him in
Mhm.
Vegas. So it's right around this time she happens to read an article that says Elvis's health is not good. He was hospitalized with an ulcer, and she's blaming the colonel for the stress that he's causing. So she now panics and is convinced that she needs to save Elvis before it's too late. And the concert in Vegas, this is her moment. This is her moment to seize. And this is when you start to think, as I'm reading this, okay, something's going to happen. But I did not expect it to go down the way it does in the book. And we're not going to give that away because people need to read it.
Little twist.
But it's clear that over time, Trey is to Liz what Colonel Parker is to Elvis. He takes this save Elvis thing farther than even she imagined. And again, you got to read the book to find out how this ends. But I'm curious as to what led to this ending. And were there alternate endings that you had in mind? Or was this, you were set on this ending?
Actually, we went back and forth on a few endings, and this was kind of a last minute the way that we decided to do it. Um, and we did intentionally make Liz to be out like Elvis and Trey to be the nemesis, you know, um, like a wolf in sheep's clothing, because she did not see his flaws for the longest time.
And this could happen to all of us. I think that's what's interesting too. That's what's relatable is you have to be really careful of this because he's very charming in the beginning and she's
Mhm.
very taken by him and he takes advantage of that. I, I I have a question regarding the Elvis song Change of Habit, and you did mention that. It's from 1969. And you
Mhm.
you make certain to include the lyrics in the book. So what is the significance of that song? Why is it so important to highlight this specific song?
There's not a specific importance, but we just started with that because she was set in her ways, as we all get to be sometimes. And she needed to see beyond herself that, that she was not stuck where she was, that she could make changes in her life. And this song was just, it flowed along with what she needed to do in her life. And the doors were opened eventually, and she did see. There's no magic importance to that
But
song.
it's a starting point and it's a
It
good
is.
starting point. And I thanked you through email for telling me about the song, introducing me to the song because I'm an Elvis fan, but not so much where I know a lot of his music. And Change of Habit was a song I
Mhm.
admit I've never heard it before until now, and I love that song. So it's not one of my favorite Elvis
It's a good
songs.
song. Yeah,
Yeah, it's on my Spotify favorites now.
very good.
Yeah. So Elvis died August 16th, 1977, 42, still so young. What do you think he would have done if he had lived, both with his music and also acting, because he was a good actor, but he didn't get the roles that he could have proven himself in. But what do you think he would have become in both music and acting in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s?
I think, and this is just my opinion, I really think that from people I've spoken with that knew Elvis at the time, that he was at the cusp of some changes in his life. I think he would have pulled back. I would like to think that he would have made those changes health wise, people that surrounded him, so forth, and kind of cleaned house and taken some time off to get healthy, to get well, because he wasn't in a good place, evidently, health wise, and so personal wise, and so I think in the 80s and 90s he might have leaned more towards, country was getting big in the 80s. He loved gospel music. I could see him doing something along those lines. And, acting, if he had gone straight to acting, that would have been great because that's what he loved. But he was so set in those formula movies in the 60s. It was hard for him to find the right vehicles.
I think about the Sinatra album where he had all those famous musicians of the time. Bono was on. You remember that album with all the people on Celine Dion, all that. That would have been cool to have Elvis do
Okay.
something like that. But yeah, I would have really loved to see what he'd done as an actor because I think he was a really good actor. Just those
Mhm.
roles, like you say, they were the same kind of roles over and over again. But wasn't there a rumor that wasn't he was to be in the film with Barbara Streisand, A Star Is Born? That right? Okay, what happened with that? I forget the reason why it never
I've heard
happened.
different things. Some people say the Colonel nixed it because he didn't get along with Streisand. Some say it had to do with money. Some say it had to do with billing. Um, I don't know that Elvis was at a point health wise where he could have done it, but it might have been the impetus he needed to get things straight too. I think he would have been brilliant, but it didn't. As we know, it didn't materialize. But I think it would have been life changing for him.
Yeah. What about favorite Elvis song? Favorite Elvis album?
My favorite song is one I don't know if you know it or not. It's called Love Coming Down. Are you
No,
familiar with that?
no. Got to listen to that one now.
Okay, it's from
Okay.
66 and it's just
66, you said 1966?
76, 70.
76. 76. Okay.
I think it was recorded in the Jungle Room. It's called Love Coming Down, and it's just a richness to his voice. I just love the song. My favorite album has got to be That's the Way It Is. Yeah. So
What about favorite Elvis movie?
well, Girl Happy for a reason,
Yeah.
obviously, because that started my interest in Elvis. But I love to watch Viva Las Vegas with Anne Margaret because they weren't acting. They were, you know, the chemistry between them was just so alive, and it's just a cute movie. My kids, when they were young, they would watch it and go around the house singing all the songs.
Yeah.
And so some of that I think is just a memory too. Is just I remember having it on a lot for the kids when they were little.
And Elvis had different eras. The gospel, like you mentioned, the early rockabilly. Is there a favorite era that you have for listening to
I
Elvis music?
The 70s for me. I mean, the early stuff I wasn't around then. I like the movie. Some of the movie tunes are silly, but some of them are really good. But the 70s, just he had matured. His voice was rich. Um, I like the 70s songs that he did.
I just can't believe because I love Why Can't Every Day Be Like Christmas?
Mhm.
All of his Christmas stuff. My dad had that album.
Yeah.
It was is it the blue cover? I'm trying to remember. It was a Christmas album, the biggest Christmas album that he had. And then you
Mhm.
find out he really didn't enjoy doing the Christmas songs all that much, or it was kind of like he was forced to do them.
I believe Red West wrote that song too.
What a song.
They'd be like, "I can't every day be like Christmas."
What a song. Yeah, I love his Christmas music. So let's finish with this. Is there a sequel to the book? Are you planning anything like that?
I've got another book in the works, and I'd like to do a sequel if as this one gets well known, and see what happens. Perhaps Liz goes to Memphis right before Elvis passes away. Maybe she does meet him. Maybe there's some changes there.
All right. All right. Little teaser.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I do have one coming out. Well, it's out now on Amazon, and it's just a short story. It's called Presley's Wonderful Life, and it's just like I said, it's a short story. It's a holiday book based on different people in his life and how their life would have been different without him. It's a take on It's a Wonderful Life.
I see it right here. Yeah, in the spirit of Frank Capra's movie, It's a Wonderful Life, where an angel is sent from heaven to help a desperate businessman remember that each of us matters and has the potential to make a significant impact. A mysterious man named Nolan appears before the rock idol with the same truth, reminding the biggest star ever why he shines so bright. He sees why his life truly matters in ways he never imagined. Okay,
Yeah,
so we can find that on Amazon, and we can also find the book we were talking about in this episode, Operation Gratitude, Kill Colonel Tom Parker. That's out now. It's available in Kindle and paperback.
correct.
So you can get it in either version. And where can people find you online, Janet? A website, social
Well,
media?
I have a website, presleystories.com. If someone wants to buy an autographed copy of the book, you can purchase it through there. If they don't want an Amazon copy. Um, so presleystories.com. I've added a little blog to it. So kind of an update on what's going on. I just got back from Elvis Week last month. And so there'll be some stories in there, recipes, and just a little interaction, a little personal interaction. I also am co-admin of an Elvis group called Elvis, A Celebration of the Man and His Music. It's on Facebook, Elvis, A Celebration of the Man and His Music. And we have about 94,000 members.
Wow.
And I do a
Okay.
lot of writing on there and a lot of fan interaction. So those are the two places.
All right. I'll put a link to both in the show notes for this episode. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Janet. It's great to have you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.